What's up, Met fans? Welcome back to Talking Mets and Rob. How is everybody doing? So, so sorry. I apologize. The connection was crap. I couldn't even get on. My everything just did not work. But I got it. I'm here. Hello. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah. I made you guys wait 20 minutes longer. I do apologize, but you know what happens. Things happen. I blame Ken. We can all blame Ken, right? Why not, right? I am not drunk, I promise. Water. But everything is good now. We are here. Thank you, everybody, for waiting and taking your time out of your night to hang out with us. I know the sound is a little off. I just realized that. Give me a second. 1 second, guys. All right. 1 second. All right. Is it sounding a little bit better? We sound good here? How's everything going? We're good? Of course, Ken. All right. Is it sounding better, guys? All right. Senga. I know. We're gonna get into Senga in just a second. I just want to make sure everybody can hear me. All right, we're looking good, guys. All right, guys. Once again, guys, I know you guys already hit on that like button because I already saw it while I was trying to figure out what the hell was wrong with the laptop and the internet. All right, so here we go. So Kodai Senga. If you haven't seen the reports, Kodai Senga is supposed to be making a decision on a Japanese. It looks like a game show or something like that in Japan. So supposedly 7:37 their time in Japan and 5:17 a.m. on the East Coast is supposed to be the time, our time, that he's going to make a decision on that game show. According to everybody, the Mets, the Padres, the Cubs, and the Red Sox are the four teams that are the finalists. I don't know if this is true or not. I'll tell you the person who supposedly is in the know about it. Let me just look at it really quick. All right, let me just make sure this is all right. So it says this is from MLB Rumors and News. This is from like all right, here we go. So this is like from a Japanese like report, and it says it's called Killsap Grand Prize broadcast from 7 p.m. on Sunday, December 11th. It's some type of like 40th anniversary annual end of year. Masahiro Nakai's professional baseball rare play good play award. It's some type of game show. I have no idea, but it says that it looks like that it's supposed to be some type of decision like LeBron did back when he became a free agent. So again, how legit is that? I don't know. That's the only thing we've heard. And apparently, the Red Sox, as of yesterday and early this morning, that they've been discussing a different type of contract, I guess a longer type of deal, about a longer than everybody else has on the table. Supposedly, the Padres and the Mets either have a 5 or 6 year deal on the table. Most believe it's 6 years. The Cubs offer is not really known, and the Red Sox apparently would go the most years, according to everybody, or at least what we've heard. We don't know exactly the details, but it seems like he would make a decision tomorrow. Again, who the heck knows? Um, so I guess that's what we're gonna hear. So, supposedly it's supposed to be tomorrow morning for us. So if you're on the East Coast, it's 5 a.m. Eastern time, and obviously if you're on the West Coast, it's 2 a.m. Western time, Pacific time. So, and it's like 7 o'clock at night in Japan. So what the hell? I don't know. Who the hell knows anymore? But we do know that the Toronto Blue Jays signed Kevin Kiermaier uh, for, I believe it was a 1 year, if I'm not mistaken. I can't find the exact details, but according to Fox Sports, the Blue Jays signed Kevin Kiermaier. So obviously they were one of the teams that were in on Brandon Nimmo, who is now a Met, 8 years, 162, along with David Robinson for 1 year, $10 million. So the Blue Jays, I guess, got their center fielder. Again, I don't think they needed Brandon Nimmo offensively because their offense is very good. Uh, but now they can move Springer to a corner outfield, save his knees a little bit, and Kevin Kiermaier can be the defensive guy that they need in center field. So that's where we are right now. We all believe that the Mets need another bat, and I keep on saying this over and over again that I still believe the Mets. I know what we heard about Billy Epler saying that he wants that he has internal options for DH. I don't necessarily believe that. I still think that JD Martinez or Trey Mancini, or again, pick a guy that you believe that could be a DH and possibly give guys days off at a position. Like Trey Mancini can play first base to give Alonso a day off. He can be everyday DH hitting for average. JD Martinez, again, he tailed off in the second half when everybody thought the Mets were going to go after JD Martinez. He tailed off. Now that can be a few things. One, he could. I don't see how somebody can get old in the same year in the second half. Maybe he just broke down. He got tired. I don't know. But you could also say that he thought he in his mind and what all the rumors were that he was going to get traded somewhere. And maybe after he didn't get traded, there was like no motivation to play well after that point, after the trade deadline. Maybe that's the whole point, right? That's what we're thinking. So that's where we are right now. Now, I think JD Martinez can be an option. Could be. Now, I don't think some people might be upset at that, but if the Mets get JD Martinez in an hour from now, and the tweets are that we get JD Martinez, I think it's going to be like a 50-50 mix. But I think most people would say, all right, I'd rather take a chance with JD Martinez than the crap that we have in Ruff and Vogelbach. And of course, yes, Alvarez could be an option depending on what the Mets do with James McCann, right? Because at the moment, James McCann is still a Met. As much as we don't want that to be the case, he's still a Met. So I already said earlier, probably about 2 weeks ago, that the Mets are not going to carry three catchers. I know Epler said that, but it doesn't benefit the Mets to have three catchers on the roster when you're looking to keep Beatty on the roster and bring him up north and Alvarez. And depending on what the bullpen arms that you have at the moment, the Mets still probably need about two more arms just to put a little bit of depth in that bullpen, unless they do McGill and Peterson in the bullpen, as one as a long man and one as just a regular reliever. That could be the case, but again, it comes down to, is McGill and Peterson going to be the fifth starter, or if Senga becomes a Met, and if Senga doesn't become the Met, do the Mets pivot to Chris Bassitt? Because if you get either one of them, you got your five starters, right? You got Scherzer, you got Verlander, you got Quintana. You would have either Senga or Bassitt as your number three, and then Quintana number four, and Carrasco would be your number five. Or you make Peterson, McGill, and Carrasco fight for the fifth spot. And whoever loses that, even though I'd rather not have Carrasco as a reliever or a long man, I think he's probably better off being a starter. But again, we've heard the rumors that the Mets might actually look to trade Carlos Carrasco, because if you look at the pitching market, not only is it robust in the free agent market and it's looking like in the trade market is going to be the pitcher market might pick up just a tad. Carlos Carrasco is a very cheap option for another team, including the Mets if they decide to keep him. Because $14 million for Carrasco, an average pitcher like that with his stuff at this moment in time is very, very cheap for a guy who can actually have a decent season, right? He was one of the guys that had the most wins on the team. I know wins is not a big thing anymore, but he had one of the most teams in the team. So at the end of the day, you have to look at it as okay, will the Mets keep a cheap option in Carrasco or look to trade him for maybe another bullpen arm? Or it could also be a possibility that they trade him and again the Mets can get him for a bullpen arm or just, you know, trade him for I don't know, maybe some type of bat that we could take a chance on. Or because at the end of the day, we can actually look at the fact that Carrasco still can be, you're not looking for Carrasco to be a number two or a number three, right? You would have that in either Chris Bassitt or Senga. I do believe Senga or Bassitt is going to be a Met, right? Because I think the Mets, if they get Senga, Bassitt's off the table. If they lose Senga, Bassitt's right back on the table. The Mets might have to give an extra year because according to some people, because you see what the Mets are doing, right? They're giving a 2-year deal or possibly 3-year deal or 2-year deal, excuse me, to Verlander and 2-year deal to Quintana. So they're not giving long-term deals to mostly anybody that is a pitcher. So you see the trend they're doing. So they're not going to give a 4 or 5 year deal to Chris Bassitt with what he's looking for. The Mets probably don't want to go past 3 years. So if he's not going past 3 years with Bassitt, then it's going to be hard for me to believe that the Mets are going to get Bassitt. That's why they probably want Senga. Senga's a little bit, a couple of years younger, and they don't mind extending him for a 5 or 6 year deal, depending on what Senga actually gets. But it's definitely going to be at least a 5 year deal. Some believe that the Red Sox have a 7 year deal on the table. So again, the report is Senga wants to be on a win now team, a team that has a championship aspirations, a contender. You don't obviously nobody believes that the Red Sox are contenders. They just lost their shortstop and Bogart. Who the hell knows if they're ever going to re-sign, extend Devers? And yes, they got that Yoshida guy from Japan, and maybe some people believe that Yoshida and Senga are good buddies. They know each other. Maybe the Red Sox did that, and maybe they have a leg up with Senga. Who the hell knows? So at the end of the day, it's possible that the Mets can get Senga or get Bassitt. But if that's why the Mets want Senga more than Bassitt. Obviously, Bassitt had a really good year last year, but um, the whole "what have you done for me lately" type of mindset with most Mets fans is Atlanta and the Padres game. So we've seen Bassitt in the two biggest games of the year for the Mets completely fall apart. And then with his comments prior to Game 3 saying that the pressure of New York, that it took him time to acclimate himself, and that was like a big no-no. So, what can you do about that? So, would you still want to take a chance on Bassitt? I think it's not the end of the world, considering the fact that Bassitt had to be the man when Scherzer went down, and deGrom still wasn't on the roster yet because of injury. I think that that scenario can happen again, right? Scherzer can get hurt, Verlander can get hurt, and then Bassitt is the guy that's on top of the rotation again. Um, I don't see that scenario playing out again, but you never know. You got guys that are 38, 40 years old, so who the hell knows? So, I know some people want to troll and act like the Mets aren't a good team, yet they were top 4 in the league or top. They were third overall in wins last year, right? Even though the Dodgers, the Mets, and the Braves never got further than the NLDS, they were the 3 best teams in the league. So no matter how you do it, even if the Mets use the same lineup, which at the moment they have the same lineup as last year, and I believe if they get Senga or even Bassitt, a little bit more pitching depth because I do believe Jose Quintana is going to be better than Walker. Because if you look at it, Quintana had a really good ERA, and Walker, for the most part, was near a 4 ERA. Even though a lot of people like Walker, facts are facts, stats are stats. Quintana had a better year, and he pitched around the same amount of games as Walker. But if you look at the durability, Walker did have a little issue with certain things. You know, he came out of a couple of games last year with an issue. He had that back tightness, and he came out of a couple of games. Quintana pitched 32 games, had a very good year in total with the two teams, Pittsburgh and St. Louis. He had a 3 ERA, so he had almost a full run better ERA than Walker. So if you just look at the rotation as a whole, no matter if you get Senga, see, I know a lot of people are just obsessed with Senga, and just because you see highlight videos of him doing great at the WBC or videos of him doing great in Japan or with any any type of video you see, you never see a bad video. Why would you see a bad video for a guy who wants to come to the major league, right? But we don't know what Senga is going to be. No matter if you get him for 5 years, 6 years, or if the Mets decide to up the offer and give him a seventh year. Senga, could he be a Hideki Arabu? Can he be a Hideo Nomo? Could he be a Yu Darvish? Could he be an Otani pitcher? We don't know. We have no idea. Or could it be a Tanaka? We don't know. Nobody knows. It is a risk for any team to take him or to sign him because we don't know. And that's just a fact. And when you look into it and you really break down everything, would you rather have Chris Bassitt, who is a known commodity, and give him that extra year, which is 4 years, which the Mets don't seem like they want to do with anybody over the age of 30? Everybody is a 2 year deal. Scherzer's on a 2 year deal. Verlander's on a 2 year deal. Quintana's on a 2 year deal. And no matter if you get Bassitt or Senga, it's probably going to be at least 4 years. So, and I don't think the Mets are willing to do that with Chris Bassitt, but they're willing to do that with Senga. Again, they're taking a risk, but they are. It seems like they believe, and most teams believe that Senga is going to translate to Major League Baseball, stuff wise. Like he's going to come in and be. If he's not going to be great, he's going to be good. Nobody thinks he's going to be a bust. I don't think any team is going to risk giving 5 or 6, 7 years to any international player if they don't believe he's going to be at least competent to good. Now, who knows what the average cost is going to be per year? Some believe it's going to be at least 20 million, or I would say between 18 and 25 million per year. And again, look what we just got with Jose Quintana. Can it be Jose Quintana type of year for Senga? And I know with the chat, I got you guys. Again, a lot of people are chatting. I just want to get my ideas out there. Just TD. The same reason why he would go to the Padres. What have the Padres won? Right? They've choked just as much every year as the Mets, right? Right? All the people that they have on that team, they didn't get to the World Series, right? If that's the case, why don't he just go to the Dodgers? Oh wait, the Dodgers are not in on him, right? So again, the Mets, if you just go by what everybody did last year, because at the end of the day, everybody want to keep on thinking that the Braves are going to be a good team, but the Braves are going to lose Swanson, and they're looking to replace Swanson with Elvis Andrews, who is a veteran, but let's be honest, he's well past his prime, and or a young guy that is not necessarily proven as much as well as Swanson is. So don't think for a second that Swanson is not going to be a pretty decent loss for the Braves, because it looks like the Braves aren't doing much at all. I mean, almost all the free agents are going to be off the table, at least anybody who is a name. Right? I don't see the Braves going after Correa. So there's your option right there. Could they trade for somebody? Absolutely. But the Braves have done basically nothing. They got a bullpen arm. Basically, that is it. So before we start giving the Braves the division, they're going to lose one of their key guys in that roster and is in that lineup. And why does everybody just assume that Acuna is going to be perfectly fine with his knee? I mean, he struggled last year. He got better when the time went on, but he struggled with the knee. There's no guarantee that he's going to be 100% healthy, right? Nobody knows about Soroka. Last time I checked, Spencer Strider and Max Fried were a total shit show in the playoffs, right? And Charlie Morton looked like his age is catching up to him. So as before we go crazy about the Braves, let's not act like the Braves don't have issues and they have not addressed them. They're losing one of their key players in their lineup. Did you if you go back and look at the stats and watch the games that the Mets played against the Braves the last 3 games of the season, do you know who were the killer on the Braves against the Mets, who was a Met killer? It was Dansby Swanson. Every time he came up to a bat, it seemed like he got a big hit. He had a couple of home runs in that series. He was just a pain in the ass in that series. And he was like that all year to teams in the NL East and basically around baseball. So don't think for a second that he's not a big part of that team. And they're probably going to lose him. He's probably going to go to the Cubs or the Cardinals, most likely. So I don't know what to tell you. The whole point is that everybody's talking about the Phillies lineup, and that's fine. But they've replaced basically Eflin with Walker. And again, Walker's probably a better pitcher than Eflin, but we talked about Walker that he probably fits better in a Mets rotation than a Phillies rotation. Because look at the difference. If you look at Walker's stats, he had a 3.91 ERA with the Mets. That is playing in a big ballpark at Citi Field for 81 games, or if you want to go half the starts, 15 starts. And Walker gave up a ton of home runs, even when his stuff was really good and there was no issues with the mechanics and he was striking out guys. He still tend to give up the big home run. And Walker is prone to giving up home runs. And if you translate that into Citizens Bank Park, who with Walker, he had a lot of times where he has quote unquote given up warning track power, but when you pitch in a stadium that warning track power in Citi Field and Nationals Park and other teams in the NL East would be 5 to 10 rows deep at Citizens Bank Park. So I don't see Walker translating great. Now, I'm not going to say he's going to be a complete disaster because that's not fair to Taijuan Walker. And to be realistic, even if he does pitch to a 4 ERA, that's not much of a change from what they had last year pitching wise. So when you look at it, you can't just say the Phillies got completely better because they still got to do stuff with their bullpen, right? They have the same bullpen that they have last year right now. And they lost David Robertson to the Mets. And the Mets bullpen, some can say that the Mets bullpen could be better this year than it was last year. The Mets were in the middle of the pack last year in ERA in the bullpen. As much as everybody wants to kill the bullpen wasn't necessarily bad for the Mets. It was pretty decent, actually. If you look at the ERA throughout baseball, the Mets were in the middle of the pack. Again, should be good enough, but it's definitely could be better. And I think it's looking more and more better, right? Robertson is probably going to be your setup man to Diaz, and with the other additions that they got, again, they still need help, right? They got the lefty from the Rays. They made a couple of Rule 5 picks. They got when the Yankees DFA'd that pitcher, I think Statland, I think his name was. These are guys that are going to be mainstays in the bullpen most likely. They got a lot of good to quality arms in that bullpen, and they're probably not done in that bullpen. In my opinion, I think they need two more relievers. I still think the Mets still are going to be looking at Ottavino, which would be great because he's devastating against right-handed hitters, and we know David Robinson can do well against righties or lefties. So that's the whole point with the bullpen. So the bullpen could be better. Again, it's still a crapshoot. Every bullpen goes through its trends, like I've been saying over and over again. Year by year, you can have the same names in your bullpen. That same bullpen could have a 2.5 ERA on average in 2022. In 2023, excuse me, it could be a full run worse, but it also could be better. So, a lot of people just look at the names and says, "Oh, he was bad last year. Oh, he was good last year." But that doesn't mean nothing because no matter how good a bullpen could be, it could be the exact opposite. Again, there's not a lot of relievers that have a trend on pitching good every single year. Yeah, you have one or two, couple of those pitchers in baseball that you can trust every step of the way and every year. But most of the time, you'll have a reliever like, whoa, wow, Seth Lugo in 2021 was not really good for the Mets, but in 2022, he was a lot better. And Ottavino in 2021 was decent, but he had a terrible postseason. But with the Mets, he was one of the best relievers in baseball, let alone on the Mets. So you don't really know how these relievers are going to pan out. And as I said, we have that lefty that we got from the Rays. He is a lefty specialist. It was something that the Mets necessarily did not have. Yes, we had Joely Rodriguez, who was okay, but the big at bats seemed like he failed in those aspects when he put him in against lefties. And I think too many times this year, with the three batter rule, he would face a lefty. Even if he would get him out, he would struggle against right-handers. And that was the situation where it was pretty unfortunate because the Mets had nobody else to turn to when Joely Rodriguez was complete garbage at times. With the lefty that we got now from the Rays, he dominates lefties, but he's actually pretty good against righties as well. So it's not the end of the world if you bring him in a clean inning where there might be one lefty coming up, say like a Bryce Harper, but after that it's two righties in a row. You don't have to worry about being concerned that this guy has no chance against righties. So that's where we are with that. So Victor, do we get Senga? I am a little bit nervous that the Mets might lose Senga to the Padres. I don't think he's going to the Red Sox because if all the reports are true, he wants to go to a win now team. That's not something that was just one report. Multiple reports have said that. His agent was quoted he wants to go to a win now team. So you're not going to the Red Sox because even if the Red Sox take 2 to 3 years to build up whatever they're going to do. If they sign Devers, it's going to take them. They just lost Bogart, so they can't be better next year, right? Most of the free agents are gone. Unless they're going to get Correa and do a little bit more, they're still lacking in the rotation, lacking in the bullpen, and there's still a lot of pieces missing in the lineup. So is Senga going to go to the Red Sox and wait 2 to 3 years, pitch well, and not win anything? He is in a division with the Orioles, who seem like they might be doing something. They started to come on in the second half last year. They haven't done nothing. Everybody thought they were going to get a shortstop and they were going to get a pitcher. I still see Chris Bassitt as an option for the Orioles. So the AL East as a whole, everybody can just assume that the Blue Jays are going to be better. They had a little bit of a down year, right? You just assume the Yankees are going to probably win 90 plus games because that's what they do every year. So they probably maybe the worst team in that division, the Red Sox. So are they going to? Is Senga just going to go there and hope by year 3 when the Red Sox could be good? And I think Chaim Bloom is doing an absolutely terrible job as the GM. And let's be honest, there was a lot of people who thought that Chaim Bloom could have been a possibility for a GM for the Mets. So I don't think Senga's picking the Red Sox. I think the Red Sox are making a last ditch effort to try to get him because of the fact that with them signing Yoshida, people believe that them two are friends. At least that's the word that them two are friends. So maybe that's why the Red Sox got Yoshida, even though he is a very good contact hitter. He's a 300 hitter who doesn't strike out a lot and takes a lot of walks. Who knows? So I don't think Senga's an issue. The Cubs are. I'm sorry. Red Sox are an issue with Senga, unless he really likes Boston and they overpaid for him, where nobody else is willing to go to that amount of years and that amount of money. Again, I don't see why. I think it would. I understand why the Red Sox are trying to get Senga. He can be leading their rotation, especially with Sale. Who knows with his injuries? They got Evaldi. Oh well, actually, Evaldi I think is a free agent, but they really don't have any starters, so he's going to be the big guy for them. And I don't think Senga wanted to do that. And he wants to go to a, a big city. He wants to go to a big market. The Red Sox are not necessarily a big market, right? I know they spend money over the years, yes, but they're not considered a big market. They're not considered LA, New York, right? And Chicago is a big city, as much as we don't think it might be, considering with baseball, going to the Cubs is technically a big market. Again, not necessarily payroll wise at this moment, but besides New York and California, Chicago is like I would say big market B, and California and New York, or at least the Dodgers and any New York team is considered big market. So we'll see. But the Cubs aren't very interested. They're definitely in on it. But what we keep on hearing is that it's the Padres and the Mets. Because if you really look at it, compared to the Cubs and the Red Sox, the other two teams that are rumored to be in the mix, the Cubs are not necessarily at that point of competing yet, even though the NL Central wasn't very good. And the Cubs, with a couple of moves, could be fighting for the NL Central. So it's possible that the Cubs are not necessarily one of his top choices. The Mets and the Padres are. And if you really think about it, it kind of makes sense, right? The Mets won 101 games. Yes, the Padres were a wild card team, but they went into the NLCS. So, and you would think with the signing of Xander Bogaerts, they got Soto. I mean, they're stacked. Tatis is going to come back. Machado is there. Like they're stacked. There is no doubt about that. So they are a good team. They will compete for the division against the Dodgers because let's be honest, the Padres are licking their chops right now because the Dodgers they haven't done absolutely nothing, and I don't think they're going to get Correa. I don't think they're on Rodon. So how are they getting? How are they getting better? Right? Yes, they won a ton of games last year, but that's the same team that didn't get out of the NLDS. Right? For everybody who kept on talking about, oh yeah, oh nobody wants to face the Dodgers. They're dangerous. They're dangerous. They couldn't get an RBI in that series at all. Okay, at all against the Dodgers against the Padres. So I don't know. Listen, there's a lot of good things when it comes to a Japanese player going to the West Coast. You know, you see Tani, you Darvish. Remember, you Darvish didn't go to the Padres, right? He went to the Cubs, right? He went to the Cubs as an international as when he was a free agent. He went to the Cubs, right? He got traded to the Padres, or was it a signing? I'm not 100% sure. I think it was a trade to the Padres. So it's not like the Padres are well known to be getting these Japanese players, right? So Darvish wasn't like he chose, right? Darvish could have went anywhere, but he chose Chicago, and he wasn't. He was good with Chicago, but he's not as good as he was that he is now with San Diego. And even the Cubs gave up on him, but he started to get better. So again, the Padres are going for it. And as I said, it really doesn't look nowadays. I think too many people are focusing, especially now with the extended playoffs. and the way the playoffs have worked out over the last probably about 6, 7 years, probably close to 10 years. The best team does not always win. Juju, it might be a little me. I think do. I sound okay? I just want to make sure because I know some people are saying that it sounds a little different. It could be a couple of you, maybe it is me, but I just want to make sure. So I do sound okay. All right, because I got to turn on YouTube for a second, just on my phone, just to see how I sound. Give me a second. Let me just make sure I sound okay. I just want to make sure I'm okay. They're drunk. All right, let me just make sure. Okay, I think I sound good. All right, so it might be on your end, Juju, but yes. So there is a lot of ways you can look at it. You can say, well, the Padres have you Darvish, right? Um, it does sound a little muffled. Okay. Um. All right, okay, it does sound a little bit muffled. Okay. All right. All right. So with that said, it's obvious that the Padres are a nice destination, right? Obviously, you can't complain about the weather, right? Right. But if you really look at it, right, if you want to go on, people believe that Jacob deGrom went to Texas because of the tax purposes, right? Well, if he's looking at that, then if he's picking between the Mets and the Padres, depending on if the Mets and the Padres offer is similar, which some believe it is, very similar, then the tax bracket is a little bit better than California and New York. So that's an option. Again, it's not a beautiful option. Again, listen, if it was up to me, I'd be going to San Diego. Let's be honest. The weather's better, right? It is a team that possibly can win. So you're not losing much, right? Depend a little bit of money, yeah, but according to everybody, he wants to go to a win now team. And his agent is the same agent of Jose Quintana. So people believe when they signed Jose Quintana, some people got worried, especially Met fans, that the Mets weren't in on Senga. But as soon as they signed Jose Quintana, the next report was the Mets are still heavily involved in Senga. So I don't think an agent is going to take a big market team out on his prized free agent in Senga to help sign Jose Quintana with the Mets and take them out of the running. So you don't think an agent would do that. So the agent clearly knew the Mets were still going to be involved if they signed Jose Quintana. Again, it might not work out considering the fact that Senga didn't pick the Mets yet. But again, at 5 a.m. today or tomorrow Eastern time, supposedly Senga is going to make his or say where he's going to go on a Japanese game show. Again, that's a report. I don't know how legitimate that is, but that seems to be the going consensus. Again, we haven't heard anything from a national reporter or any type of reporter that is worth noting, but there was a Japanese tweet that was associated Senga with a game show making his decision. It's basically like LeBron and the decision on ESPN when he became a free agent. So I don't know. Again, if you believe the reports, he wants to go to a contending team, a win now team. The four teams that are supposedly involved, they could always be a mystery team. You know, from the Mets, the Padres, the Cubs, and the Red Sox, you can only look at two teams at the moment that are teams that are win now mode, and that's the Mets and the Padres. So if you go somewhere else, that was a bullshit report, right? That was nonsense. Whoever leaked that out. Listen. I know people are thinking about booing deGrom. There's no need to boo deGrom. Again, I don't like the way he went about it. Like he could have at least went back to the Mets and say, "Hey, can you match this offer?" If he would have went back and the Mets said, "No, we're not matching that offer," and he took Rangers deal, I'm not gonna kill him. But at the end of the day, most of these players take the bigger contracts, right? Unless you're Turner and Judge, right? Every other player seems like they take the biggest deal. So I'm not really gonna go crazy. Uh, am I disappointed because deGrom basically gave a big fu to basically the Mets fans because that's what he did. I know he said, "Oh, the Mets fans hold a special place in his heart." Don't give me that shit. I don't want to hear that. Right? That's nonsense. You took the most money and you went to a state that has no tax, no state tax. So again, I'm not going to kill him, but listen, I think most players should do that. To be honest with you, but some players don't see it that way. Again, and then his nonsense response to, well, the Rangers were dedicated and their goal was to win a World Series. Well, that's every team's goal. Like at least most teams' goal is to do that. But you can't say that when you just left a 101 win team to go to a 68 win team. That makes no sense, right? No matter, even if the Rangers do nothing else, they spent they got Simeon and Seager and they won 68 games. If they don't do nothing else pitching wise, they got Jacob deGrom who hasn't pitched a lot in 2 years, who was going to be the ace of their staff. Yes, they got Jack Leiter, but he was okay. He was all right. He wasn't good. And then they got Kumar Rocker, who everybody keeps saying that his arm is a complete mess. So they're going in the season with question marks. And how much better can they be in 68 games? Even if they got a 20 game difference, that's 88 wins. Is that enough to win the division? Probably not with the Houston Astros. Is that enough to make the wild card? Possibly. But we don't know who's going to be better in the American League. Everybody expects the Guardians to win the division in the AL Central. But it is a possibility that the American League could be a little bit better. So that doesn't help the Rangers' chances of making the playoffs. Again, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, yes, the Rangers could be a lot better. But that's 2 or 3 years down the road, and that's already in the halfway point of deGrom's contract, and now he's a couple of years older now. So I don't know. So you know, they do got Bruce Bochy, who everybody believes is a respect. Obviously is a respectable manager. 3 World Series with the Giants. So could the manager make a difference? Right? We all believe the manager made a difference with the Mets, but the, you know the Mets were basically close to a 500 team. Well, we're a 500 team in 2021. And even if you think the manager boosts the win total by 5 games or so, maybe even 10, if the manager is that good, even if you put Bruce Bochy and giving him 10 extra wins for that team, so that's 78 wins. Do they have enough to get over the hump and make the playoffs? Yeah, possibly. But deGrom's WAR was what, 3 last year? So it's not much of a difference. Again, Jack Leiter could be exactly what everybody believes him to be, but is that enough? We don't know, right? Because I mean, besides Seager and Simeon, and who is really much more in that lineup? So I don't know. Again, it's his decision. That decision's over with. The Mets, we can't worry about that at some point, but it is weird that deGrom would say stuff like that, knowing that it's not true, right? I mean, next year the Rangers could be the best team in baseball, but that's a huge if. You cannot say that deGrom made a choice based on uh, the better team because that's not true, right? Then the reason why is because nobody was willing to give him on any other team, not just the Mets. Nobody in baseball wanted to give Jacob deGrom anything near what the Rangers gave him. Most people believe that the Braves were willing to give 2 years on a big high AAV. Other teams that could have been involved weren't going 4 years. They were going 3 years the most. So clearly he took the team that was the most desperate. that needed pitching badly, and deGrom used that to his advantage, which is not a bad thing because that's what players do. That's what agents do. And I'm not going to fault deGrom for doing that, but I don't want to hear that crap. I know you want to, make yourself enamored with the fans of your new team, but let's be honest. Come on, it's like he could have went to many other teams that were in a better situation than the Rangers, and he didn't do that. So at the end of the day, he's not going to hurt the Mets unless the Mets and the Rangers during the World Series in 2023 or when we face them in the end of August. Other than that, he's in baseball Siberia when it comes to the Mets. He's going to affect the Yankees more than the Mets. We faced them 3 times this year. That's it. With the competitive balance schedule, with the balanced schedule this year, you play a lot more teams around your league more than you would be facing the Texas Rangers, according to the Mets, right? You play the same teams that every other team faces in your division. So it's not like last year where the Mets played more games. Like nobody played more games against the Yankees in the NL East than the Mets. So that's not fair. And now with the balanced schedule, everybody in your division is going to be facing the same teams for the same amount of games. So that's where the balanced schedule comes in. So everybody in the NL East plays the same teams throughout the season. And I think that's a good thing. Again, I'd rather just play National League teams and play a lot of games in your division because that's the most important thing. But now with the division not really being as important than in years past, because look what happened, right? The Nationals won the World Series in 2019. The Braves won the division in 2021 based on everybody else being bad. They won with 87 games. So it's not like if they would have had 87 wins this year, they might have not even, they would have just sneaked in the playoffs. So the Braves won last year with 87 wins. The Phillies nearly won with 87 wins this year as a wild card team. So, and if you look over the last 10 years, the best team really hasn't won the World Series. So, in every team that goes into the season that has a chance of winning obviously wants to win the division. We've seen for the first time this year, there is a bye with the 2 best teams in each league. Well, that the only team that made the World Series that got that bye was the Houston Astros. The Dodgers lost and the Braves lost in the National League. And the Yankees got to the ALCS because they lost 2. But the 2 teams that had the bye, the Yankees and the Astros, got to the ALCS. So the Dodgers and the Braves didn't get past the NLDS. They didn't get past 1 round. So is it a good thing to have a bye? Some people believe that the Mets, because their older rotation and the injury that they had to Marte, the bye could have helped Scherzer with his oblique and Marte with his hand. So I think it's important to look at the fact that it that it can be. It really doesn't matter. I don't think that the division is a complete must, even though obviously the Phillies, the Braves, and the Mets are all going to try to win the division. Uh, but it could be the same situation this year. 3 teams from the NL East make the division, make the playoffs. So we'll see what happens when it comes to that. I just want to look at the comments really quick. I know a lot of people are just chatting away. I see a lot of Kate Upton, Nancy Pelosi. Uh, guys, you guys are funny. So yes, if you're just tuning in or didn't hear that, it seems like Kodai Senga is going to make a decision on a Japanese game show our time in the morning. If you're on the East Coast, 5 a.m. If you're on the West Coast, 2 a.m. And it's going to be like 7 o'clock at night in Japan. So, yeah, that's the thing we're going to be talking about right now. Well, Gary, some believe that, but again, we're never gonna know, right? The Mets could have got the bye. They were probably gonna face the Phillies in the NLDS, and the way the Phillies were playing at that time, they were the hottest team in baseball at the time. They got hot during that time, so there's no guarantee that the Mets from the going into the bye would have beat the Phillies in the NLDS. Even though we talked about this last year during the playoffs, that the Phillies were a bad matchup for the Braves. It seemed like the Mets matched up better against the Phillies, but again, the Phillies got hot at the right time, so there's no guarantee that that bye would have helped the Mets anyway. We don't know because it didn't happen. Well, yeah, Gary, exactly. The Mets seemed like they matched up well, even when the Phillies were doing very well in the second half. The Mets still dominated them. I was at those games in August. The Mets were dominating them even when they were on their hot run in the second half. So again, we don't know because it didn't happen. The Phillies could have played the Mets in the NLDS for the Mets coming off the bye, and they still got beat by the Phillies because the Phillies were so hot. Again, we don't know what would have happened because they didn't play each other. But what the season showed was the Phillies gave problems to the Braves all year, and it was when the Phillies were a bad team in the first half and a really really good team in the second half, and the Braves struggled with the Phillies, but the Phillies struggled against the Mets. So who knows what would have happened, right? But the Padres got dominated by the Dodgers all year, and then the Padres beat the Dodgers. So there's no one way to go about it. That's why when I said the playoffs is a complete crapshoot now, that if you make it, anybody can win, right? That's the way the baseball playoffs is now. Like I've been comparing it to the NHL playoffs, right? In the NHL playoffs, there's 8 teams in each league in the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference that make the playoffs. In the NHL, the eighth place team can win the World Series. You saw that with the St. Louis Blues a couple of years back. So the Major League Baseball playoffs is becoming a lot like the NHL playoffs, where just make it and anything can happen. That wasn't like that 10 years ago. It was usually one of the best teams in baseball usually won the World Series. That's usually the way it was. It wasn't maybe the best team record wise, but it was definitely one of the top 4 or 5 teams in baseball that would win the World Series. Look at the last couple of years. Besides the Astros, who was the best team in baseball that won the World Series, right? You had the Nationals, you had the Braves, you had the Red Sox. The Red Sox were a good team, but they were never the best team in baseball. So it's weird, but it's just the way it is now. So people, hey Joe, what's up? People are not should not just focus. Yes, the goal is to win the division, but it's not the end all be all. I think the problem more with the Mets of them not winning the division was they got shell shocked the last week of the season going into the playoffs. I think if the Mets in early September knew that they weren't going to win the division, they could have cruised into the playoffs, rested some of their guys, knew when they were going to be the number one wild card team no matter what, because the records, I think we had, 13, 14 more wins, or about 13 more wins than the Padres, than the second wild card team. So if the Mets would have cruised into, because the Braves and the Mets knew that they were going to be the number one seed and the number one wild card team. So if the Mets knew they weren't going to win the division early September, they could have rested. They didn't really need Marte as much in September. They could have rested Scherzer a little bit and rested their rotation a little bit and rested some guys in the lineup and go into the Padres series a lot more healthier and a lot more rested than what they were. And I think because the Mets were fighting all the way to the end of the season for the division, and then the last week of the season, they got punched in the face by the Braves. The Mets never had enough time to recover. And it was obvious, right? You can bring up the injuries, you can do whatever you want. If Marte played, I consider them healthy. No matter if he was or not, I consider them healthy. The same thing that goes for Max Scherzer. If Max Scherzer oblique was hurting him, then he shouldn't have pitched. I see it like this, and I'm being fair, and I'm not using my Mets bias because I I laughed at the fact that people talked about Cole's hamstring injury in that wild card series game against the Red Sox in 2021, and I said that Yankee fans and Cole and the Yankees shouldn't talk about an injury to a pitcher that actually pitched. Now, if he got hurt in game, different story. Like, he threw 2 innings and they took him out because of injury. Different story. But Cole stood in the game, Scherzer stood in the game, and Marte stood out of the game. There's no excuse on that. If you play and there was an injury concern, but you played, I consider you healthy. That's it. And there is no reason to use an excuse, right? The Braves could have used excuses, but they couldn't score runs against the Phillies in the NLDS, right? I don't look at it like that. I saw Scherzer on the mound give up 6 runs. So I didn't want to hear after the game, oh, he was favoring his oblique. Well, too bad, right? If your oblique hurt too much, then you jeopardize the team by pitching. You know what? Maybe Peterson or McGill should have stepped in, or you should have started deGrom, who was available to pitch game 1. They went with Scherzer, knowing the concerns that he had with his oblique. If the Mets knew that his oblique was a problem, there should have been no reason why they decided to put him in game 1. They should have started deGrom. So I don't have no sympathy for the Mets or Max Scherzer. If you play in the game and you had injury concerns going into it, if you were that hurt, you jeopardize the team in the playoffs or at that moment. Well, committee again. I'm sorry, Todd. Yeah, he was good in Oakland and Milwaukee, absolutely. But that doesn't mean that he didn't tweak it prior after that. And it's impossible to think that just because he was good in Oakland and Milwaukee doesn't mean that the last 2 weeks in September he didn't tweak his oblique and didn't say nothing, or did say something to the Mets, but the Mets kept it quiet. But if the Mets knew that, that's on the Mets. Scherzer should have never started game 1 in that aspect. They should have gave him an extra day's rest, and maybe it would have turned out differently if deGrom would have started first in the first game. But again, that is just it's like talking about it after the fact. Nobody knows that could have happened. So it is what it is. Oh well, I'll be at work by that time, so I'll know at that second he makes the decision if it's true. If it's true that he's going to make a decision on that game show and it's between 5 and 7, it's a 2-hour show. I know that because I don't know the name of the show, but I think what it showed, because it's all in Japanese and then it has it looks like the time 5 to 7. I could be wrong, but it seems like he's going to make a decision on that game show between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. Eastern time. So karaoke, how you doing? Yeah, karaoke. Sorry, how you doing? So it's too. I don't like hearing excuses. Just like I didn't like hearing excuses from the Braves. Right? The Braves. If you talk to the Braves fans last year, they were already punching their ticket to the World Series. Right? There was no way they were going to lose in the playoffs. Right? That was the Braves mindset. The Braves fans' mindset. Same thing with Dodger fans. They got well ahead of themselves. They just thought they were going to blow past the Phillies and the Padres, and it wasn't going to be a concern, right? Because remember, if you spoke to the Brave fans prior to the NLDS, when we knew what the 2 series were, Phillies, Braves, Dodgers, Padres. According to the Dodger fans and the Brave fans, That series should have never been played because they were going to easily win, and it was going to come down to the Braves and the Dodgers. Well, guess what? It came down to the Phillies and the Padres. So again, it doesn't matter if you're the best team in baseball. It doesn't matter if you have the best record in baseball. Doesn't matter. It comes down to the fact you have to play well and you have to get hot at the right time. That's it. Low explosive, whatever. Again, I don't think it had anything to do with that about the All-Star game coming out of Atlanta because of, we know the issues. It was all political. But who cares? That has nothing to do why, had no reason why the Mets of the Braves won the World Series. Has nothing to do with that. They played extremely well down the stretch. That was it. They got hot at the right time. That was it. The same thing with the Phillies. So, why did the Phillies get hot at that time? Was there a reason for it? No, they just played better. The same thing for the Nationals in 2019. They were 10 games out of first place in the first half. They got all the way back into a wild card and won the World Series. Don't use one reason for a reason that has nothing to do with the play on the field for the Braves winning. The Braves won because, you saying that the All-Star game was taken out of Atlanta and that's why the Braves won is not giving enough credit to the Braves in 2021. Has nothing to do with destiny. The Braves played well. You saying that does not give the Braves enough credit as a team, and that's not fair to them because they played extremely well during that stretch. Remember, they were coasting to that division in 2021, right? They won 87 games. If the All-Star game meant so much to them, they should have won 96 games. Yeah, it might have been a little rally cry, but that's not why they won. They won because they played better. They got hot at the right time. They coasted to the division and got hot in the playoffs. That was it. It's not that hard to figure out. Karma is not real because if karma is real, then there were so many things that happened this year where you could have said that the Dodgers should have won the World Series or the Mets should have won the World Series, or in this case, karma, all the Yankees injuries. Well, karma should say, well, the Yankees should have won the World Series. I don't see it like that. I see it as the fact that the team got hot at the right time. They weren't the best team in baseball at all in 2021. They were basically tripping over themselves to a division win in 2021, got into the playoffs and got extremely hot, just like the Nationals did, just like the Phillies did this year. The only difference is the Phillies didn't win the World Series, the Astros did. Evil, it wasn't who they exactly supposed to agree to disagree. Agreed. You believe in karma. I agree. I, I I believe in looking at the games and looking at the teams that played well. That's it. Because you can pick any team and say karma was the reason why. So I think that's a pipe dream, in my opinion. But again, agree to disagree. Well, Tanya Senga is just going over all the contract offers he has, and according to reports, he's going to make a decision 5 a.m. Eastern time on a Japanese game show, and it will be 7 o'clock at night in Japan. That's the report. So between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m., he's supposed to make his decision on where he's going to go. So we'll see. Well, Christopher, Seacombe could spend all he wants, but it doesn't guarantee you a championship. I mean, look at the Yankees, look at the Dodgers, look at the Padres. Teams that have been spending like crazy haven't won. Yeah, the Dodgers won in 2020, but again, can we please leave that pandemic year acting like it's a real season because it's not. Yeah, Grant. I noticed that he was at a sign-in uh thing. I think it was like a week ago, and yeah, his wife is nice looking for sure. How let's see. Forget about the Mets moving the right field fences. Yeah. Oh, that was the thing. They're not moving in the right field fences for anybody in particular, right? If they were actually trying to move the fences in, they should have never made right center field a disaster for David Wright, right? Because David Wright's power and what he did well was hitting the ball to right center. That was his best asset as an offensive player. He used to hit a lot of home runs over the right center field wall at Chase Stadium. In Citi Field, it was like the Grand Canyon. You couldn't hit it out unless you really got a piece of it. So the reason why they're moving the fences in is because of a club, the Sleep Easy Club. They're moving it in to make a club, just like the Jim Beam Club, just like the Piazza Club, like that. They're doing a club in right field. That's the reason why they're moving the fences in. Don't think too much into it, guys. Everybody thought they were moving the right field fence in because of Judge or something like that. That's not the case. It's all business for that aspect. I agree. The Wilpons completely destroyed. Uh, right. I agree. Well, yeah, Todd. I mean, but they hurt one player to make another player better, and at the end of the day, David Wright stood longer than Jose Reyes. But again, your best player going into building a new ballpark was David Wright. That was your crown jewel, right? That was your that was your guy, and you took his best asset as an offensive player. I mean, yes, he hit more doubles, but he was hitting balls nearly 400 feet to right center, and they weren't going out. Remember, right center field was a lot deeper when Citi Field first opened than it is now. They moved it in 50, 10, 15 feet prior to after it first opened a couple of years later. Because if everybody remembers Citi Field, and I think most of you do, when you walked in there, it looked like a black hole. The walls were black, the seats were dark green. It was just a weird feeling. It was a beautiful ballpark, but they made it. It looked like you walked into death because everything was black. The walls are black. The Great Wall of Flushing, according to Howie Rose, right? So, I mean, now you walk into Citi Field, it's bright, it's blue, it's orange. It actually looks like a Mets stadium. When Citi Field first opened, you walked in, it looked like a tribute to the Dodgers, not Jackie Robinson. Yes, I love the fact that Jackie Robinson was a big part of, because let's be honest, Jackie Robinson, yes, the Mets are in Queens, the Dodgers are in Brooklyn, but that was the National League situation with the Mets, right? The Mets colors are from the Giants and the Dodgers, right? When they were in New York. No, the National League teams, they put the colors together and that's the Mets. So I get the aspect of that, but there was no indication or any uh, exposure to the Giants' history as the Wilpons, as we all know. Fred was a huge Dodgers fan, and he made Citi Field to look like Ebbets Field. And when you look at it, it looks like Ebbets Field. When you walk in, it's a tribute to Jackie Robinson, and it looks like a Dodger monument, basically, when you walk into the Jackie Robinson Rotunda. I love that because let's be honest, Jackie Robinson changed the game of baseball. Not just the color barrier, but it got extremely talented African Americans and Latin American players to play in Major League Baseball. Nobody can deny the fact that baseball got better when Latin players and African Americans were able to play baseball. It wasn't just a white man's sport. Baseball is what today is what it is today because it's diverse. And there's a lot of players that weren't able to play in the major leagues at the time that were playing in the Negro leagues, like Satchel Paige. Satchel Paige is like 39, 40 years old. when he was able to pitch in Major League Baseball. He was considered one of the best pitchers ever, but never really got a chance to pitch in his prime in Major League Baseball because of the color barrier, which was, again, during those times were the worst times in American history. During that time when segregation was a real thing, and Satchel Paige was considered the best baseball pitcher ever, but when he became the major leagues, he was still very good at his later ages, or considered as a player. He was still very good, but he wasn't prime Satchel Paige. I mean, look at all play Hank Aaron. I still believe as the home run king. You know, Barry Bonds, Ken Griffey Jr. Like you can go on and on and on. I can name you hundreds of great African American ball players. So I love the tribute to Jackie Robinson because of he broke the color barrier. He wasn't just an African American that got into baseball and wasn't very good. He was a great player. You know, I mean, he played great when still getting destroyed by the media, and every city he went to got stuff thrown at him, name slurs and everything like that. And he still was one of the best players with all that against him. And that's awesome. But let's be honest, the Wilpons made Citi Field as a tribute to the Dodgers. There's no denying that. Look at Citi Field and put Ebbets Field. Look at the two pitchers. They are very similar the way they're built, at least the front. And then you walk into a Jackie Robinson Rotunda that now, with Steve Cohen, you got the video boards walking up the stairs of the lineup. You get up to the top step or the escalator. You got a digital screen that shows the Mets lineup. It looks like a Mets ballpark now because of all the changes, and that's pretty cool. So let's get back to the real issue, and we're going to end this stream in a little bit because guess what? I got to go to work again. So here we are, December 10th. The Mets just signed Nimmo. They signed Robertson about 5 minutes apart. So they solidify their bullpen a little bit more. They get back their center fielder. At the moment, the Mets lineup looks very similar to 2022. And again, you can critique it as much as you want, but the Mets are bringing back the same lineup that helped win 101 games. So you can't be that mad, even though we still all believe that there's still another bat in that lineup. And I think everybody can agree with that. Again, are the Mets going to do that? Who knows? We'll see. DLE, thank you, buddy. If I can say that, I would, but thank you so much. So that's the whole thing that I think we're looking at, right? Every Mets fan definitely says that we need another bat. Again, is it a power bat? Maybe. Is it a quality bat that can at least hit 250, 260 and drive in some runs? Again, I don't think anybody can believe that Escobar, Canna, and the DH spot can be worse than last year. If any of those positions do a little bit better, or all those positions do a little bit better, nobody can do worse than what the DHs did last year for the Mets. Catcher was a no-show, and third base up until September was a disaster. So if those positions play a little bit better offensively, this lineup could be better, just like that. And karaoke, it's a good point, right? But even if Alvarez isn't a huge part, like say if Alvarez struggles at spring training, doesn't hit well, and the Mets are worried that if they bring him up to the up north after spring training, and he didn't play well in spring training, and they keep him in the minors for say the first month, and they use Vogelbach and Ruff for the DH. Again, nobody will be happy, but is it possible that Ruff and Vogelbach could be a little bit better than what they were in 2022? Yeah, very possible. It's possible that third base could be a little bit better with Escobar and Beatty offensively. So if they get 2 out of 3 that performed a little bit better than what they did in 2022 for an entire year, the lineup's going to be better. Because if you look at the Mets roster, lineup, everybody did it. Most of the players in the lineup did not overperform. Everybody played to the back of their baseball card. Alonso, McNeil, Marte, Canna, Nimmo had a career year. But if you believe what everybody's talking about, that Nimmo is in his prime. So that's the thing that you have to look at. Like if Nimmo digresses a little bit, but if third base provides a little bit more offense, or catcher, or DH, then the lineup is going to be as good as last year or a little bit better. Because nobody overperformed. Nimmo to an extent average wise, but every other stat, he was basically what his career was. So even if Nimmo, instead of hitting 275 like he did in 2022, and he hits 260, not much of a difference. And if everybody plays to the back of their baseball card, the Mets lineup should be better, just as a whole. And Karaoke, thank you for the super chat, buddy. I appreciate it. No, Christopher, I agree. But most can say that Vogelbach and Ruff were terrible. Like Vogelbach was okay, but people when they looked at Vogelbach and without actually looking at his stats, like, oh, he's a power bat. I'm sorry, somebody that hits 17 home runs is not a power bat. So that means Nimmo's a power bat, Marte's a power bat, and Needle and Canna's a power bat because they all hit around 15, 16, 17 home runs. If you think a power hitter is hitting 17 home runs, then you don't know what a power hitter is. A power hitter to me is 25 home runs or more. And some you can even put it as 30 home runs or more. But nowadays, with not a juice ball, anything 25 home runs or more, I consider a power hitter. And somebody that hits 35 home runs or more, I consider an elite power hitter. So Vogelbach is not a power hitter. He's an on-base guy who, when he hits a ball, he hits it far. So he looks to walk more than he looks to hit. Yeah, Karaoke. I just talked about deGrom's press conference. But you know what? He's trying to make the new fans of his, the Ranger fans, happy. So I can't kill him on that, but we know it was a joke. James, I have faith in Alvarez. Bailey can hit 18 to 25 home runs. Yeah, I mean, considering what they did the last couple of years, or at least especially last year in the minors, we expect that. Now, now Beatty has to play every day to hit 18 to 25 home runs. If he's going to platoon with Escobar at third base, he's probably not going to hit 18 to 25 home runs. Now we have to think of it. If Beatty plays half the games, 81 games, say, and Escobar plays 81 games, it's pretty likely that both of them are not going to hit 18 to 25 home runs. So if Beatty plays more, like say 100 games, yeah, maybe he can hit 18 to 25 home runs. But again, there's no guarantee going into the season that Alvarez and Beatty are going to play every day. Because there's no guarantee. At the moment, we got 3 catchers on the roster: Alvarez, Nito, and McCann. If the Mets go into the season with McCann still, McCann is going to be part of that catching duo. Alvarez could be the DH, yes. But you also have Vogelbach and Ruff. I know we don't like that, but that's who we have. And there's no guarantee that Beatty is going to be the starter at third base. They're not going to play him over Escobar. It's just not going to happen. Unless Escobar is a complete disaster in spring training and Beatty beats him out and you got Escobar on the bench. Escobar at the moment is the starting third baseman. Alvarez is going to be platooning with Vogelbach and Ruff at the DH. They're not going to be starting. And I think a lot of people got to realize what the Mets are going to do. It's Buck Showalter. And the Mets mindset is not just to give Beatty and Alvarez the starting role, right? You're not going to start. They're not going to start. I can guarantee you that Alvarez is probably not going to be the DH on opening day, unless he is completely setting the world on fire in spring training, and there's no way the Mets can leave him out of the lineup. But don't be shocked if there's a right-handed pitcher on the mound on opening day against the Mets. Vogelbach is probably going to be the DH, and Escobar is playing third with Beatty and Alvarez on the bench. Don't be shocked by that. Uh, I don't know about Vientos again. I don't know. I like Vientos, but I was a big advocate of trading him when you should have traded him for a relief arm. You could have got again. I don't think Vientos is going to be. See, if you look at his stats offensively, he could be good, but defensively, he is well below average. Right? Nobody really knows the position for Vientos. So if he doesn't really have a position that he's actually good at defensively, then he's a DH. So if you're gonna bring Vientos up, then you might as well keep Alvarez down. If Alvarez is not gonna catch every day, because you're blocking somebody, and these guys need to play every day. So there's no point in bringing up Alvarez if you're not gonna play him every day. So I don't know, and that's the biggest issue with Vientos. He doesn't have a position. He's not very good in left field. He's not very good at third base. And at first base, you're not taking him over Alonso. I don't know. And Jay, with Mauricio, the same problem. Where are you going to play him? He's not an outfielder. Hey, listen, if he could play left field, I put him in left field tomorrow over Canna. The way he's been hitting in the minor league and the way he's been playing in the Dominican Winter League. But there's no position for him. You can't put him at second base because you got McNeil. You're not putting him at shortstop because you got Lindor. At third base, you already got Escobar and Beatty. So where are you playing Mauricio? You can't even put him at DH because you're projecting that Alvarez is going to be part of the DH platoon with Ruff and Vogelbach. Now, in my opinion, I get rid of Ruff and Vogelbach and bring up Mauricio and let Alvarez and Mauricio platoon at DH instead of Vogelbach and Ruff. And just have those bats in the lineup every day. You got Mauricio the lefty, you got Alvarez the righty. Now, if the Mets, now I don't like the platoon at DH. I think it's bad. It doesn't work. But Mauricio and Alvarez as a platoon at DH sounds a hell of a lot better than Ruff and Vogelbach and Davis and Smith. Right? I think I would trust Alvarez and Mauricio as a platoon DH than any other combination you can give me. I'd rather that option. But I don't know what the Mets are doing with Mauricio because Mauricio does not have a spot on this team. He can't play. He can play third base. He's playing it in the Dominican Winter League. But here's the problem: you got Beatty and Escobar at third base. You're not putting Mauricio in over any of those two. Unfortunately, Lindor is the shortstop. Not taking Lindor out of the lineup for Mauricio. You just can't do that. And McNeil, you're not taking him out of the lineup unless you put Mauricio at second base, who hasn't played second base at all in the minor leagues or in the Dominican Winter League. So you're putting a guy in Mauricio at second base who's never played second base. Now, talent alone and his defensive capabilities, he could translate perfectly to second base. But there's no guarantee the Mets are going to do that. You could put McNeil to left field and put Canner as the fourth option. Now, I think that might be our best option. Putting Mauricio at second, so you put his bat in the lineup, and McNeil to left field, and put Canner as your fourth outfielder. Now again, there's no guarantee that Mauricio is going to hit in the majors. There's no guarantee that Alvarez and Beatty are going to hit in the majors. But if they do, now we have something cooking. Now, I think the best lineup is this. I would start now if James McCann is still on his team. That's your duo at catcher. I would start Nito over James McCann. That's just me. Alonso at first, Mauricio at second, Lindor at short, Escobar at third. I don't think Beatty's going to start the season unless Escobar completely is a disaster at spring training and Beatty is a lot better. So I think if Beatty makes the team, he's probably going to be the backup third baseman. Escobar is going to start. The Mets showed you last year, even when Escobar was struggling, they kept him in the lineup instead of putting anybody else in. The only reason why Beatty came up was because Guillermo and Escobar was injured. That's the only reason why Beatty came up. So there's no guarantee that Beatty is going to be a guarantee in this roster. So I'm going to say Nito is going to be the starting catcher. Alonso, first base. Mauricio, second. Lindor, short. Escobar, third. McNeil in left field. Nimmo in center. Marte in right. That's the way I think it's going to be. And as the DH, I would put Alvarez as our DH over Vogelbach and Ruff. I don't know why the Mets are not playing Mauricio at second base. I said this 3 years ago. Why don't the Mets, as soon as they extended Lindor to that massive contract, the next day they should have put Mauricio at second base? Because that is the most likely position that could be available because you can always move McNeil to left field. And that's what they can do. That's what they should have done. Because right now, the way Mauricio is hitting in the minors and the Dominican Winter League, there's no reason why he shouldn't be up at the major league. But because he's never played second in his professional career in the minors and in Dominican Winter League, right now he's playing third. Why is he playing third when you have Escobar and Beatty on this team? It makes no sense. What I continue to say is that the Mets are using Mauricio as a trade chip. That's just my opinion. I've been saying that for years. And if you don't believe that, you're not paying attention to the situation at hand. Mauricio is a trade chip for the Mets. There is no other thought process except that. Because of the fact that they put him at third base and he played shortstop in his minor league career with the Mets. They finally moved him to another position, third base, which in the Mets system makes no sense. Because at the moment, Vientos is also a third baseman. So you got Vientos, Escobar, and Beatty. So why move him to third base? The only thing I can think of is they think he'll translate to third base better because he's growing up into a bigger body, like an A-Rod type body. Because he's getting bigger. So you don't see him as a second baseman. So that's the whole issue that I'm having with Mauricio. I think Mauricio should be up on this team. He should be playing second base, and McNeil should be in left field. That is the better option. But I don't know what the Mets doing with Mauricio. Every decision you're making with Mauricio doesn't make sense except using him as a trade chip because his value is so high. That's the only thing I can think of. And I don't know what the Mets are doing with him because any other option doesn't make sense. They didn't move him to second base, which would be the likely option to put him in the minors to at least get accustomed to second base because you can move McNeil to left field and put Canna as your fourth outfielder. One, you make your lineup better. Two, you help your bench out with Canna as your fourth outfielder because Canna can play every position, left, right, and center. In a pinch, he can play center field. So I don't know. Unfortunately, we'll see what happens. We'll know after more decisions are made with the lineup and the roster in general. Whatever the Mets do with free agency or trades over the next month and a half until spring training, until they pitchers and catchers get to spring training, until pitchers and catchers report and the roster is known, we're not going to know what the Mets are doing as a whole. So, with that said, guys, the Mets are waiting on Senga. They need probably a bullpen arm or two, and they need some type of competent bat. Unless they're going to do it internally, and they're gonna really make it interesting and give it Alvarez a big shot at DH, or bring up Mauricio. Who knows? But at the moment, internal options looking like it's going to be the DH. And the Mets have internal options that they can use. They can use Alvarez. They can use Mauricio at the DH spot. They can do that. We'll see what they're going to do. Once again, guys, Kodai Senga is supposedly making his decision on a Japanese game show at 5 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow, which is 2 a.m. Pacific and 7 p.m. in Japan. So Givens is a free agent, I believe. I could be wrong. He might be still on the roster, but I think he's a free agent. So, with that said, make sure you check your phones between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. That's when Kodai Senga is supposedly making his decision on what team he's going to make. In my opinion, it's going to be either the Mets or the Padres. Because if the rumors are true that the Red Sox and Cubs are involved as well, and if the rumors are true that, according to his agent, Kodai Senga wants to go to a win now team, the Cubs or the Red Sox are not that option. It's the Mets and the Padres. And it seems like the Mets or the Padres are the only two that it's going to come down to. Oh, well, the rumor has, Mike, that the Yankees are in on Rodon, but they haven't signed him yet, so who knows? So, with that said, guys, hopefully by tomorrow, the Mets and Senga are a match, and he chooses the Mets, and we solidify our rotation. And now we can focus on the rest of our bullpen and another bat in the lineup. So with that said, guys, everybody have a great night. Let's hope for the best when it comes to Senga, because if the Mets don't get Senga, now they got to battle it out with other teams for Chris Bassitt, and that is not going to be an easy task, considering the fact that the Mets haven't given anybody over the age of 30 more than a 2-year deal. So with that said, everybody have a good night. Let's hope for Kodai Senga as a Met tomorrow, and then we can focus on other spots on this roster, bullpen, and another big bat for the Mets to get in this offseason. So everybody have a good night. As always, let's go Mets. I'll see you next time, guys. Have a good night.